I discovered my mother-in-law's secret manipulations through texts. Did she visit to bond or to vet me? My heart is heavy with doubt. This will be an extensive post, and I apologize in advance. Recently, my fiancé's mother has been engaging in behavior that I find uncomfortable, such as being overly attached to him and other things I prefer not to disclose. However, he consistently reassures me by saying, "My mom cares for you immensely. She never speaks negatively about you. She tells everyone that you are the best woman for her son." It truly hurts me when he expresses disappointment about my complaints regarding her actions. He suggests that I focus on the positives and overlook her mistakes. Out of curiosity, I decided to look through his phone to see what positive things she might have said about me, because I felt guilty for even voicing my concerns given the way he portrayed her. For context, I have been in a relationship with my boyfriend, who is 29 years old, for 1 year and 3 months. We recently welcomed a 3-month-old baby into our lives. I am aware that the timeline may raise eyebrows, but we fell in love quickly and chose to start a family that we cherish completely. For privacy, let's refer to my fiancé as Tom and my mother-in-law as Jessica. When Tom and I met, I was in my final university year and focused solely on my studies, not employed. I was raised by a single mother who had to manage additional responsibilities, including my siblings. I am originally from Africa, and Tom hails from Europe. You might wonder why I am sharing these details. I believe they will be relevant later. Additionally, I come from a modest background, though we are not in dire financial straits. Conversely, Tom's family is affluent. Early in our relationship, Tom excitedly introduced Jessica to me, believing she would be thrilled to meet me. Jessica traveled to Africa solely to see me, which made me appreciate her dedication since few people visit another country unless they genuinely care. I felt an immediate connection with Jessica and was ecstatic. We spent our time together, and she even began paying me to teach her English for an hour each day. However, upon reflection, it seems she was not truly interested in learning English, as she spoke it well. It appears she simply wanted to have daily conversations with me, but everything we discussed seemed to be relayed to her son, leaving me uncertain about her intentions. On the very first day we met, she probed about my parents and their separation. In that moment, I texted Tom to find out if he had informed his mother about my family situation. Tom denied having said anything. Jessica then looked me in the eye and insisted, "I know that you might think my son told me this information, but that is not the case. I simply noticed that you do not mention your father, so I assumed he is not significantly present in your life." Today, I went through his phone and discovered a conversation they had that day. She texted him stating, "I have asked her about her parents, but I'm certain she will question you about why you told me. Do not fall for it, just deny everything." Tom replied, questioning her involvement in our personal matters, to which she responded, "Son, trust me, I know what I am doing. There's a reason I asked her this, and I will explain later. I'm still with her." I have no idea what they discussed during their call later. As the day went on, while having lunch with Jessica, she remarked that I appeared pregnant and insisted on me taking a pregnancy test. She declared that if the test were positive, she would be the one to inform her son. She said, "I know my son well, and I know how to handle him." I was taken aback, but I took the opportunity to notify my boyfriend about the situation. To clarify, he was already aware of my pregnancy, but we weren't ready to announce it to anyone yet. Jessica persisted in her questioning, but I assured her that I was certain I wasn't pregnant and there was no cause for concern. Later, she expressed her desire for me to spend the night at her hotel, claiming she would be bored. I struggled with how to decline, wanting to make her happy. I agreed, although I was uncomfortable with the arrangement. Later, around 11 p.m., I decided I needed to contact my boyfriend for help in devising an excuse to leave. We agreed upon a plan, and I mentioned that my house might not be properly secured, so I needed to return home for safety reasons. I have a personal taxi driver, and I called for him to pick me up. At that moment, Jessica insisted that she wanted to accompany me to the taxi, but I didn't want to inconvenience her, so I bade her farewell. She embraced me tightly, kissed me on the cheeks, and expressed tears of joy over her son finding me, saying she truly loves me. Throughout the taxi ride, I was in communication with my boyfriend, and when I arrived home, we continued our conversation via video call. Upon checking Tom's messages today, I saw a conversation where Jessica texted him, saying, "Son, I do not believe you can trust this woman. A man called her, and she left with him at this late hour. I'm unsure what she is plotting as she was acting strangely all day. She might even be pregnant." "Are you confident that you can trust her?" Tom replied. "Mom, the man she was speaking to was her taxi driver, and she has already gotten home. I've talked to her, everything is fine." Jessica then responded, "Oh, okay, I was merely concerned for her since it's late for a young woman to be out. You know how much I care about her, I was worried." Looking back, had I not communicated with my boyfriend before leaving, this incident could have harmed our relationship. If I had been pregnant, he might have questioned whether the child I carried was indeed his. My heart is heavy because all I had were fond memories of the time we spent together when she visited my country. I believed we were on the same wavelength, but it appears she might have been gathering information about my past to share with her son. This leads me to a lingering question: did she visit my country out of a genuine desire to see and connect with me, or was her purpose to evaluate whether I am worthy of being with her son? Fast forward a month, and my boyfriend wishes to relocate me to his country since we have a child on the way, and he wants to build a family with me. Unfortunately, he had just graduated, which meant he didn't have much money in his bank account, but he had sufficient funds to arrange my travel. For those familiar with traveling from African nations, it's necessary to demonstrate adequate funds in a bank account. Jessica offered to attach her bank statement to my documents, indicating that she was the financial sponsor for my travel arrangements. This would alleviate any concerns the embassy might have about potential financial issues. As my appointment day approached, she flew back to my country to accompany me. On the day of the embassy appointment, I was asked to present my bank statements to assess my financial situation. However, as I mentioned earlier, I was a student and not employed. I merely needed a small amount of money to show in my account for the appointment, but I was short by $100. Jessica had previously made comments to Tom about how African women are often motivated by financial gain and advised caution. Today, I reviewed the chat they had that day where she texted him, "Son, this woman is going to ask you for money. Do not give her any. If she requires money, she should ask her parents. It is not your responsibility to provide for her." Nevertheless, he did send me the $100 despite his mother's comments. I didn't plan to actually use the money, as it was simply to meet the requirement, and I intended to return it afterward. Reflecting on this, I feel disheartened because Jessica was aware that my mother was a single parent managing numerous responsibilities. How could I have approached asking for money to live with the man with whom I am expecting a child? If my boyfriend were impoverished, I could understand the situation, but I am referring to people who claim that financial means are not an issue for them. Fast forward to the present, I have finally moved to his country, and while anticipating the arrival of our child, I voiced my concerns to him about the potential changes to my body, particularly regarding breastfeeding. Jessica was present during this discussion. I asked my boyfriend whether I should breastfeed in conjunction with formula feeding. Later, Jessica texted him, asserting, "This woman will drain your finances. Trust me, I know the costs of formula milk. Encourage her to solely breastfeed. Even when she expresses concerns about producing enough milk, it isn't true. The more she nurses, the more she will produce." This almost swayed my boyfriend, as we had an argument that day where he insisted he didn't want to waste money on unnecessary expenses. He mentioned that numerous people had warned him about the high cost of formula milk, estimating it to be around $40 every week. Yet he was unable to convey to me that it was his mother who had influenced his perspective. In retrospect, I see how Jessica could have posed a threat to our relationship. Jessica often claims that I will always be her favorite daughter-in-law, even if her son falters one day. I decided to conduct a loyalty test by playing a prank on her. I called her and said, "I overheard Tom talking to a woman late at night. He then left and returned after 2 hours, and he told me it was you. Please confirm if he is lying and if he was speaking to another woman." She did not hesitate to reply, "Yes, he was talking to me. Do not worry. For those 2 hours, he was at my house due to an emergency, but he didn't want to alarm you." I was stunned. We ended the call, and she immediately contacted Tom to corroborate my story, speaking on speakerphone. After her conversation with him, she called me back to try to convince me to drop the matter. In that moment, Tom and I shared a laugh and revealed that it was a prank. She became furious and accused me of making her lie, saying, "You see what you have caused. I felt awful having to deceive you. You made me excessively worried." I ultimately apologized for my prank, but she never took accountability for her own actions. I understand she may not share the same loyalty with me as she does with her son. However, given her claims of affection towards me, she easily could have made an excuse to end the call instead of exaggerating. Much has occurred recently, including her fabricating stories to gossip to her son. For instance, when I confided that I felt overwhelmed after giving birth and needed some solitude, she texted him, saying, "Your wife is tired of the child. She just complained to me." I underwent a cesarean delivery and was already recovering within 2 weeks. While dealing with back pain and sleep deprivation from caring for a newborn is undoubtedly challenging, I was 1 month postpartum when my fiancé suggested I start exercising, such as taking daily 30-minute walks, but I consistently declined and chose to stay home instead. During a conversation between him and Jessica, he remarked, "In my opinion, she is lazy when it comes to physical activity. She does not make an effort to go out for a walk." Can you imagine my disappointment when my mother-in-law replied, "Yes, yes, you are correct." Considering she has also experienced the difficulties of recovery from a C-section, I would have expected her to display more understanding. I comprehend her desire to support her son, but not at the expense of truth. I spoke with my fiancé about this, and he sincerely apologized for his comments. He explained that since he observed me appearing fine and I never expressed my feelings, he believed I was managing well. He was sincere in his apology. During periods when I reduced family interactions due to the stresses of postpartum recovery, Jessica reached out to him, expressing that I was too reserved. However, when she communicates with me, she reassures me, saying, "Take all the time for yourself if you need it. I understand that caring for a child is not easy. You are a great mom. I love you so much." When we are together, she expresses deep affection for me, often becoming emotional, hugging me tightly, presenting thoughtful gifts and, above all, adoring my child. At least for that, I feel assured. Yet, whenever I converse with her, she rushes to her son to alter our discussions. I consider myself fortunate that he is not one to gossip. He typically instructs her to let it go. At this juncture, I find myself perplexed about whether her affection is genuine or driven by ulterior motives. To me, love is unequivocal. You either love me or you do not. There cannot be a middle ground. One cannot claim to love me while distorting my character. Does she truly love me for who I am, or does she value my presence merely because it brings happiness to her son? I speak of a mother who has informed her son that if he moves to another city and leaves her behind, she will buy another house right next to him. A woman who will decline family gatherings if her son does not attend because her preference is to be where he is. That is the extent of love I refer to, and she seems willing to do anything as long as it brings joy to her son. I expressed these thoughts to my fiancé, and he suggested that I conduct a heartfelt conversation with her to articulate my feelings. This would allow us to clarify the nature of our relationship and determine whether her behavior is an act or a reflection of genuine affection. If her demeanor towards me changes post-confrontation, it would confirm my suspicions. Conversely, if she continues to treat me with warmth, it may indicate that her kindness stems from her inherent character, since no one is perfect. However, I am not a confrontational individual, and our relationship could suffer if the discussion takes a negative turn. Additionally, knowing her temperament, she dislikes being challenged and becomes defensive. If the outcome is unfavorable, she could potentially rally others against me. We reside in a small town where everyone is familiar with each other. What should I do? Should I simply allow her to be? Yet, if we do not address this, her influence over my fiancé could jeopardize our relationship over time, especially considering they work together and she speaks with him daily. I am confused about how to proceed. What actions should I take? Thank you for reading. Story 2. I was fired for theft accusations I didn't commit. My complaint led to my old managers losing their jobs and the shop's closure. My year in 2019 was quite eventful. However, now that things have finally improved, I feel prepared to share this experience here. After finishing university in late 2018, I experienced some challenging times and had to return to my hometown. I attempted to transfer my position to a local branch, but was unsuccessful, which left me in need of finding a new job. I accepted a 20-hour-a-week role at a betting shop, along with a second bartending position in the evenings. The betting shop became the focal point of my unexpected predicament. The key individuals involved are as follows: Janelle, my manager's supervisor; Shay, my manager; Jorge and Gordon, my colleagues; and Cara, a colleague at another store, who plays a significant role later. Names changed and/or redacted. I was assigned to work behind the counter as a customer service manager, which is essentially a level above a cashier. It sounds impressive when included on a resume, but there was really little to it. My responsibilities included accepting bets, engaging with customers, assisting people with machines, and for the majority of my shift, waiting around for tasks to perform. I believed I had a good rapport with my colleagues and did not face significant issues. I worked 20 hours a week, earning about £1 above the minimum wage, along with required overtime and irregular shift patterns. While I had no significant complaints about the job, it was challenging to manage the schedules of both my jobs. In February 2019, after completing 6 months with the company, I was summoned to a probation hearing. It is crucial to note that it was a probation hearing where I would have my performance evaluated and, as stated in training, was promised a pay rise upon its completion. That morning, I arrived for a disciplinary hearing where, with no evidence presented, I was accused of 11 separate cash discrepancies dating back to early November 2018, shortly after I started, which totaled £271.36, most of which I had never even heard of. My manager, Shay, and my colleagues had supposedly reported and documented these issues, despite never having mentioned them to me during the 5 months this was allegedly happening. I was informed that this was intolerable. A call was made to human resources, and I was dismissed on the spot, compelled to surrender my keys and to never return to the store. Despite my protests, I was told the decision was final and that I would soon receive written notification of my termination by post. Determined not to wallow in self-pity, I opened Indeed on my way home and applied for several jobs. By the time I arrived home, I had secured an interview for the following week at my current job. At this point, I was extremely angry. I felt infuriated for having attended what I believed to be a routine probation meeting only to find myself accused of theft and permanently banned from a location I had no intention of visiting again. Surprisingly, my parents were even angrier and insisted that I inform them whenever I heard from the company again. Nearly 2 weeks later, I received an email from Human Resources reiterating the accusations and once again confirming my termination. My mother sat me down in her kitchen and helped me draft a response letter that was 2-part professional, 3-part scathing. It tore into them for their unprofessional behavior, their absurd allegations, their lack of evidence, the inconsistencies in their story, and finally, the employment laws they had violated. I did not seek much. I simply wanted a favorable reference. I needed assurance that no mention of these accusations would surface when my new employer contacted them for a reference, as I had already been offered the position by then. I attached the letter to an email directed at their Human Resources department. Next, I included Janelle's work email, followed by her boss's email, and ultimately the parent company that owned the brand. I wanted to ensure that my message was acknowledged. For context, the betting shop where I worked is a brand under an international corporation, and their influence permeated every aspect of our operation. I am uncertain whether holding company is the appropriate term, but I shall use it for now. Ultimately, I sent this email with a 48-hour deadline for a response. I received a reply the following day from the same address, confirming that my demands would be met. I felt victorious and moved on with my life, relieved to be done with the entire situation. However, I had unknowingly triggered a series of events that would not become clear until 3 months later. 3 months later, I had adjusted to my new job, a call center role offering double the hours and significantly increased pay. Having completed my training and settling into my position, I noticed a fresh group of trainees being introduced to our team. Among them was Gordon, one of my former colleagues from the betting shop. I was taken aback. Gordon had worked at the betting shop for 6 years before I was employed. He was well respected, competent, and a favorite among the managers. There was no logical explanation for his departure. While I had reservations about initiating a conversation with him, believing he, Jorge, and my manager likely set me up, my curiosity about what transpired prevailed. Fortunately, during a break one shift, he approached me and disclosed everything. Apparently, my email had caught the attention of senior management at the holding company, leading to increased scrutiny of the betting shop in our town, where there were 3 locations overseen by Janelle, 2 in my town, and a 3rd in a neighboring area. Someone in human resources relayed a message to the area manager, Janelle's boss, demanding an investigation and wanting results immediately, prompting him to drop everything and rush to our small town with the urgency of someone aware that his superiors were monitoring his every move. He questioned Janelle, seeking clarification on why he had not been informed earlier that I was allegedly embezzling funds, why I had been given keys to the store and allowed to work shifts alone while facing such serious allegations, and why I had not been placed under investigation. As it turned out, Janelle had documented in my employee file that I was under investigation, but had never followed through with any official procedures for monitoring or investigating my actions, falsely claiming otherwise. The area manager then took note of the dates and amounts of the cash discrepancies, verified that they had indeed been recorded on those specific days, without my awareness, in Shay's own logbook, and forwarded that information to our security team for further investigation. Another important aspect is that the CCTV footage for each store in the brand is outsourced to a private security company that monitors each location remotely and has access to all video cameras. Following protocol, they reviewed the footage for the specified dates to check if I had engaged in any suspicious activities. Since I was innocent, nothing was ever recorded against me. However, they uncovered something significant. It turned out that money was indeed disappearing from the shop, but, surprise, surprise, it was not me rather, it was Jorge and Shay. They not only orchestrated a setup against me, for reasons I will never understand, but also manipulated numbers and falsified cash checks in the system to conceal their actions. One incident involved Shay deliberately shortchanging customers by siphoning portions of their winnings without their awareness, many of whom were elderly individuals. Gordon stated that he once opened the shop after I and Shay had closed the previous night and noticed a cash discrepancy, but had been instructed not to inform me, as I was under investigation, and it could compromise the situation. He did apologize, and I chose to forgive him. Needless to say, both Jorge and Shay were dismissed. However, the story does not conclude there. Our team was small. With me included, only 4 individuals worked at the store. As they could not employ anyone to substitute for me, the termination of Jorge and Shay left Gordon as the sole employee at the busiest shop in our area. Even if they had managed to gain assistance from colleagues at the other 2 shops, it would not have sufficed to keep the store operational and serve the influx of customers. As a result, the location was shut down until they could acquire adequate staffing. At that juncture, Gordon submitted his resignation and applied for a position at my workplace. Consequently, they were left with no employees. Additionally, Gordon's girlfriend worked at the same store as Janelle, and she communicated that Janelle was rarely seen at their location, in the other town, in subsequent weeks, after which the area manager announced that she had been dismissed as well, with no explanation provided. Eventually, I received an apology from the area manager regarding everything that transpired, along with the information that Janelle was no longer with the company, conveyed through an email sometime later. However, the story doesn't end there. With the store where I was employed now closed, a prominent high street location favored by most customers, the only remaining branch in town was significantly smaller and located in the suburbs, the same one where Kara worked alone. Suddenly, she was inundated with customers in her limited store space and received no support from other staff or higher management. Consequently, for her own mental well-being, after already being overworked and underpaid while managing an entire location alone, she resigned, leading to the closure of that shop as well. All of this occurred at the most inconvenient time, March, coinciding with the Cheltenham Festival, which serves as a substantial revenue generator for the gambling industry, even in a small town like ours. an opportunity that the three other bookmakers on the high street capitalized on, while my former location missed out on a significant number of customers. At present, just over a year later, both shops remain closed, and I am transitioning into a career in cybersecurity, with the training financed through my current employment. I owe a debt of gratitude for being terminated, as it turned out to be a beneficial outcome. Summary: I was dismissed based on false theft accusations. I escalated the matter to higher management. The actual wrongdoers lost their jobs, all local shops were shut down, and they ultimately lost revenue and customers. Update: this situation gained considerable attention. I appreciate all the support and encouragement. Gordon and I contacted our former area manager, which allowed us to gather more information. The security team examined approximately 3 years' worth of footage after discovering the wrongdoing of Jorge and Shay, and estimated that over that period alone, they collectively embezzled nearly £4,000 through various deceptive practices. The parent company also took action, scrutinizing years' worth of their financial records, and identified numerous irregularities. The parent company pursued criminal charges against them, leading to their arrests, though, to our area manager's knowledge, the case remains ongoing. He believes this is because authorities are still assessing the extent of their theft, as they both worked for the company for a considerable time, Jorge for around 8 years, and Shay 10 years. While I doubt they possess security footage spanning all that time, they are likely attempting to establish a more accurate total to strengthen their case against them. A new character enters the narrative: Tammy, not her actual name. She was an employee who was hired and then dismissed shortly before my own termination at the same store. She lasted just beyond her probationary period before being let go due to unresolved financial discrepancies and falsified cash checks of which she had not been informed beforehand. However, her circumstances are far more dire than mine. Tammy is currently suing the company for wrongful termination, seeking compensation for financial and emotional distress, as she faced intense stress during her employment due to Shay, who reportedly neglected her and refused to intervene while customers became aggressive, and subsequently experienced a miscarriage shortly after her termination. Our area manager lacks further knowledge regarding her case, as it has escalated beyond his control, and I suspect I won't obtain any additional information. However, it seems the company is struggling with this matter, and I wish her the best. Gordon and I are contemplating reaching out to other terminated employees, of whom he can identify several who faced similar issues, to gather their experiences. It is evident that the misconduct of Shay and Jorge had been ongoing for an extended period, with me being the most recent scapegoat. As for Janelle, she apparently is doing fine. Several years ago, her husband and she established a taxi company, and she appears to have become more involved in that venture. I have not seen her and cannot confirm her current situation. Nonetheless, she was terminated for gross misconduct and failure to adhere to established procedures, which was something I anticipated. Kara, whom our area manager has expressed a dislike for, though she is a lovely person who did not deserve her experience, appears to be doing well. I reached out to her, and she and her partner recently purchased a house. She has also secured employment as an events manager at a local historical site. She is happier there, as she now has coworkers to interact with and is no longer isolated. Thank you once again for all the encouragement and support. Story 3. 30F, having issues with boyfriend, 30M, and his girl best friend and don't know what to do. Okay, so this is going to be very lengthy, and I am going to need to omit many extra details for the sake of time and for the readers. I am a 30-year-old female and I have a boyfriend who is 30 years old, and we have been together for nearly 2 years. I should mention that I do struggle with addiction issues, which have been a concern throughout our entire relationship up until about 5 months ago. In the beginning, when we started dating, he was always messaging this girl who was his best friend. He insisted that they had never been intimate and that their relationship was purely platonic, which I initially believed and accepted. Fast forward 3 months into the relationship, I was really struggling with my addiction and had a night where I blacked out and cheated. To summarize, he responded by visiting his female best friend, and they got matching tattoos together. I accepted this as my fault. They remained in contact, and I mean daily phone calls, streaks, and literally communicating on 3 different platforms simultaneously. About 6 months in, I began feeling insecure and requested that they reduce their communication because it was making me uncomfortable as their interactions were flirty at times. She was even married during this period and confided in him about her infidelities. He started talking to her less, and eventually, we reached a point where they were no longer communicating at all, or so I thought. Every time we fought and broke up, he would end up calling her or reaching out, and they would pick up right where they left off. I have been experiencing a terrible gut feeling for the past month and have continuously checked his phone. Eventually, I found proof of them video chatting last May and sending inappropriate content from my shower. He claimed we were broken up, but we weren't. The last time they communicated was in September. I discovered that they had been in contact the entire 2 years, with only a few months apart at times. A few months ago, I found a note in his app where he had written about sleeping with her and how great it was. He claimed he wrote it out of anger and to upset me, insisting he did not send it because he couldn't follow through on that. I did not believe him but accepted it again and moved on. On Tuesday, after finding the exchanged explicit messages from May, he again adamantly denied that they had been intimate. I contacted the girl to confront her about a $10 request she sent, which was puzzling since it seemed out of the blue. In reality, it was her way of trying to reconnect, like a, "Hey, are you there?" type of message. I told him that during my conversation with her, she mentioned that they had slept together and attempted to start a relationship. He ultimately came clean and stated it was only one time and that she didn't want anything serious because he had a son at the time and they were young. He has been actively working to remove the matching tattoo as a way to move on. But now I've discovered they have been talking this entire time. I truly feel like a crazy person for feeling this way, as it's unbelievable to have to sit in a room while he gets the tattoo removed and pretends to be happy about it. I am at a total loss. He says he only kept in touch with her during my struggles with addiction. However, to me, that suggests he was simply waiting for me to fail, keeping her as a backup plan. I found emails indicating she was the one that got away, and despite how many times he insists I am the love of his life, it feels like only words for a child. These messages were old, predating our relationship, which leaves me uncertain. There is so much more to this story, and I have not been perfect either. I emotionally and physically cheated during the first 6 months we were together, but after reaching a certain point, no matter how difficult things got and how much we fought, I never sought comfort in anyone else, while it turns out he was doing that. All those times he encouraged me to overcome my addiction, he was messaging her. Every time I faltered and felt terrible about myself, he was communicating with her. They even joked about running me over with a car while I was literally on my bedroom floor in tears, feeling hopeless. He insists he has been faithful since September, coinciding with my 5 months of recovery, which is also when he last communicated with her. I simply do not know how to feel. I no longer feel like I know who he truly is. The girl finally replied to me and pretended to be oblivious. She stated that if they had wanted to be together, they would have been. She also claimed she had no idea I was involved, despite them having laughed about me. I really do not know where to go from here or how to process this. I finally believed I had someone who supported me, as he maintained a facade that gave me hope he wouldn't abandon me. I have never had anyone in my life who believed in me, and I thought it was a miracle that someone finally did. I struggle with borderline personality disorder, depression, generalized anxiety disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and am certainly not an easy person to be with, but I feel like I was involved with a stranger the whole time. There is so much more to this story, but if anyone has insight into why this happened, I would appreciate it. I even told both of them I would contribute for gas money for him to go live with her. She lives out of state. I just do not understand the sneaking and lying to your partner if it is genuinely just a friendship, and why they wouldn't simply be together if that is what they wanted. We are all adults with jobs and children. He has no obligations to me or reason to stay with me, so I simply do not understand why he wouldn't pursue her. Any insight would be appreciated.